Gluckstein Lawyers proudly present Butter Torts, a truly Canadian legal podcast. We're excited to have you join us bi-weekly as we interview guests on a variety of different topics related to personal injury. We look forward to sharing our expertise, insights, and most importantly, our stories with our listeners while providing a better understanding of the personal injury legal landscape. You'll have a chance to meet many members of our amazing team and learn more about the role they play in helping our clients lead better lives.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Butter Torts, a truly Canadian legal podcast. I'm excited to be back with you today. This podcast has been a little bit in the making to get this to happen because everybody's busy, but I'm so happy that we were able to facilitate this and have this conversation with all of you today. I am Brenda Agnew, and I am back with my co-host.
Who's back?
with my co-host, Jordan. And so you never know what you're going to get. So buckle up because this could go any which way. And now that we're on video, we have to behave a little bit more. But that's okay. It is our pleasure to also welcome Charlie Johnstone to the podcast today. And Charlie is the president and CEO of Variety Village of Ontario. Is that correct? Did I get that title right?
It would be Variety, the children's charity of Ontario.
Perfect. Thank you.
And Variety Village.
Yeah. Amazing. So there we go. That's why we have you. So I am going to just read a little bit. I was talking earlier, Charlie's bio is very fulsome, and that is a really great thing. But I think I'm going to read just a little bit of it because we'd like to have those conversations as we're talking today about some of the other extraordinary things that you've done in your history. So as president and CEO, Charlie leads the mission to give all children living with disabilities in Ontario a chance to achieve their personal bests. He believes in the power of sport to inspire children to dream beyond what they once thought was possible. And once they know what they can achieve, nothing is beyond reach. Charlie is highly experienced and respected leader in sports marketing. Most recently served as president and CEO of two of Canada's most unique events, the Royal Agricultural Winter Fair and the Honda Indy Toronto. In these roles, he successfully developed strategic and financial initiatives that stabilized the organizations and facilitated their continued long-term growth. And now you're with Variety. So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Did you get a swim in this morning?
What's that?
Did you get your swim in this morning?
I did not. We had the LG games this morning, so we were in early getting set up for the Lieutenant Governor coming today. So no, the swim was not happening this morning, but it is advantageous to have a facility here. So now I have no excuses to getting into the gym or the pool.
So that's kind of a cool thing.
Right into things.
But why don't you tell us about that? That's actually a great, it sounds like you had a really great event happening today. So let's sort of talk about that a little bit, and then we can dive off from there.
Today was the 37th Lieutenant Governor Games at Variety Village. So just over 400 kids from 15 different schools were in the field house participating in about 15 different activities. And it was awesome. There was a ton of energy in the field house. Kids were all excited. The volunteers did an exceptional job kind of getting them, off the buses into the field house. We had Jeff Teesum was the MC, which was great. He's just fabulous with the kids.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful for my first time kind of being here, going through it. Her Honor had been here last year, so she knew what was going on. Anyhow, we spent a couple hours walking around and participating in some of the activities. And yeah, we'll be, I think the team right now is just posting the stuff or getting the photos and stuff ready to be posted either today or tomorrow.
Amazing.
But yeah, it was a great day. I think what I'm finding really unique here is depending on the day, well, frankly, depending on the hour within the day, there's a whole different vibe within this facility that's just remarkable. So it's been an interesting and exciting first 60 days.
How does it make you feel in comparison to running such large events and we'll get into the details of the Molson Indy and the Royal Agricultural Fair, but what are your sort of emotions after seeing the Lieutenant Games or the Lieutenant Governor Games and seeing the impact that it has on the children?
Well, what's interesting is if you look at sport in general, in terms of their passion and connectivity with fans. So soccer, football, international soccer ranks highest.
Right.
Rugby ranks really high, and motorsport ranks really high. So coming from a motorsport background, I thought I knew what emotion was. Then I went to the Royal, where if you get an animal involved, I mean, talk about emotional. I mean, they are some of them are crazy, just on how emotional they are, and whether that's on the equestrian side or you're in the goat competition. Like this is your Super Bowl. Yeah. Frankly, I mean, even the butter tart competition or the giant pumpkins, like the emotion that gets in. So then I thought I knew what emotion was.
Yeah.
Well, you come over here, and now you're talking about people's children. I'm the father of 4. And what was interesting is walking around and seeing the activities, and I'm with the LG, and she's got her aide de camp, and the people are around, and they're taking photos and blah, blah, blah. It is what it is.
Yeah.
It was great. And she's lovely. But you have those moments where you're then, I'm giving out the awards to the kids, putting the medals over their heads. Well, they're coming in, some of them a little shy because they don't know what, here's some guy holding a thing over. But I pat them on the back, congratulations. And you just see them go up. Aww. And they're walking out with their chest all pumped up, and I'm thinking, okay. I mean, there were people were saying, kids are saying thank you. One of them was obviously Catholic because she came in like this. I don't know who she was, but she bent down as if she was taking the host. And there were a few times I actually had to hold back my emotions on just going, this is a big deal for some of these kids, and they're all having lots of fun. So I think it's that emotional component to it that obviously why we're doing this, but it's the other sense I got too is it's that sense of community.
Okay.
We keep talking about this as we're going through a new strat plan, is that we've got volunteers or members that are here every day in chairs or not in chairs. And all of a sudden today, they're not in their workout gear. They're in a volunteer shirt because they want to go do something for the kids.
Sure. Yeah.
And just going, this is awesome. Like, why can't we just do that outside of these walls also? Like,
absolutely.
Well, that's why we got you to expand.
Yeah.
The programming and then giving back outside of variety.
It was amazing. And where I think what's interesting is it's the inclusivity side of it. So it's the kids that are able-bodied that are walking and seeing this, that are exposed to something different. And it's the kids that are not able-bodied going, oh, okay, I can still do things with other people.
Absolutely.
So everybody was sitting down playing sit down volleyball. And
absolutely.
They were doing the curling and golf, and it was all just happening together. And the kids, I think, are still young enough where they're just kids playing. It's like, okay, doesn't that just make sense? We're all here smiling and happy and having fun. So it was a great day. I was happy to give up my swim to get ready for the LG.
I love that you talked about inclusivity, and this is something that I'm super passionate about. Accessibility is one piece, inclusivity is another piece. Well, I think they go hand in hand because you remove barriers and everybody participates. But I've had this conversation for a long time, even at a school level. And, I've talked a lot about, we have to find ways. And the reason I bring up school is because, you were talking about school kids and coming in and, at certain ages. But I think about, it's not complicated. When I have conversations about, how we create opportunities, let's say for gym class or intramurals, in order to incorporate all students. I talk a lot about these opportunities that are, you don't need special equipment unless you're doing obviously like a wheelchair basketball or something, but sitting volleyball, some of these things that level the playing field. And I often say to them, even forget about students for a moment with disabilities. What about those kids out there who are just not athletically inclined or who, struggle in other ways. The minute you have a sitting volleyball game, guess what? Everybody is there. There's no special equipment. They all participate the same way. And it's amazing to me that we still struggle as a society to think about those opportunities and opportunities, and to sort of level that playing field. And that's why I love the work that I see being done in organizations like Variety, where you bring things down to their simplest terms. You bring in people that are both able-bodied and differently abled, and then you just find ways to include everybody. And there is always a way to do that, and it's not rocket science. It just takes a minute to think about it.
Well, and I think what's interesting is a friend of mine was saying his son, I think in grade 5 or 6, had a new best friend at school this year who has Down syndrome.
Okay.
Kid new to the school.
Yeah.
He is convinced that because his son for the last 3 years came to camp at Variety and because his son is able-bodied.
Yeah.
But has been exposed, and he's in swim programs and stuff here, but he's comfortable around
100%. Everybody. Yeah.
That all of a sudden he had no issues whatsoever going up to this new kid,
Nope.
and now they're best friends.
I love that.
Well, he said that wouldn't have happened. Like, he was the only kid in the class that started that process.
Yeah.
And he goes, it's entirely because of his experience at Variety.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, Charlie, it is. You're completely right.
Yeah.
And I think a lot about my son's best friend, Keegan. They became friends in grade 1, and, McLean's in grade 12 now, and they're still best friends. And, Keegan has brought kids in, and Keegan is a very typical, he is an almost 18-year-old with his license, and he plays on the football team, and, he chases girls, and he's got a job and all those things. And, he and McLean still remain the closest of friends. And when they met in grade 1, his mom often talks about, he had come from a different school where he was in kindergarten in a different school, came to grade 1, and she worried, is he going to make friends? Is he going to meet anybody? And he comes home the first day and he says, Mom, I have my friend McLean and he's awesome. Well, it wasn't until Christmas that his mom found out that McLean was in a wheelchair. And she found out because we were at the Christmas concert, and she says to Keegan, where's your friend McLean? And he says, right there. So nothing had come up in the conversation.
Ever.
It's great.
Ever. And when she said, is there something that you wanted to tell me about McLean? And he said, And if you asked him today, what's the difference between you and McLean? He'd say, well, I don't know. He likes chocolate, and he's this, and that wouldn't come into play. And so, it really is, you talked about, I feel like sometimes we have certain ages we have to catch, kids at, before it becomes a little bit more cumbersome for them to be inclusive. But you're right. It's that exposure. It's those opportunities. It's the chance to participate. And that's why I think it's so important that the things at Variety that you offer are not just for individuals with disabilities. Obviously, that's super important in your programming. But it's a chance to say that everybody has a chance to participate.
Well, what's interesting is talking with staff is we're starting to build out a new strategic plan, and talking about new priorities and what are we doing. And I'm even looking at looking at the staff overall, but you look at some of the part-time staff who are awesome people.
Yeah.
And going, what can we be doing for them? Because they're our future leaders.
Yes.
These are people that are working with these kids, some of them on one-to-one basis.
Yeah.
And, they're not going to be here forever.
Right.
But man, those are people that are going to be leading, our society down the road.
Absolutely.
They've already got this empathetic side to them and an understanding of it. It's like, how do we give them more leadership skills or training or those types of things? Because we just can't keep writing checks for them. But are there more things that we can be doing to help their growth also? Because I just think they're going to be extensions from here into the communities. That's what we need in the both in the short and long term.
Yeah, absolutely. I could keep going. Jordan, I know you've got questions, because you're like, I can see him. He's like this. Like he's looking at us. What do you have for Charlie?
I didn't actually have a question. It was more of a statement.
Yeah.
But it's about groups or teams or employers Variety offers to have your team or your group or your employee over to Variety Village and actually participate in some of the programming that's offered to the kids, to really see what it's like to be involved in some of those sports.
Yeah.
But really, it's a huge team building aspect that is also eye opening and educational as well. So,
Yeah.
for the listeners,
What's in?
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
Jordan. What's interesting about that is I think it's a great program. I've said to staff though, I want to make sure we're doing it legitimately,
Right.
because the idea of some organization, because they're out there, that wants to do team building and they want to feel good and they want to give us a check for $200 so they can pat themselves on the back. I'm
And say
going,
we did this.
eh,
Yeah.
it's a little bit of greenwashing or what, like, it's just like,
Yeah.
because it takes us a bunch of time and effort to do that and get organized. Yet we had an organization that with TMX Group was here today. They were involved in that program last year. They've committed a fair amount of funds on what they want to do.
Yeah.
They come out consistently to help with other events.
Yeah.
They brought a half a dozen people out today. It's like, great. There is a partner that is seeing value in helping kids. And yeah, we could go to any of 100 different great causes for kids. They've chosen Variety. Our staff have done a great job with them, and that's a relationship we want to keep building, because we can integrate them in the actual delivery of programs and services. So we had somebody from TMX helping me give out medals, and we're just commenting about the joy on these kids' faces and the impact that today made. So
Absolutely.
That's great.
yeah, it was fun.
Well, then you get your win-win, right? Because then your win is, like you said, it's there's a true desire on behalf of that organization to want to learn more about the work that you do, be ingrained in the work that you're doing. They want to wholeheartedly support it because it's the right thing to support. But then, they want to be involved in different ways, because we talk a lot about money is super important, and I don't want to. You couldn't do what you do without the money. But then, having the people who will go in and participate and have, rolling up their sleeves and getting involved. Then on the flip side to that too is that now they have their employees who have been, perhaps they've never been around someone that's had a disability.
Exactly.
They've never been to an environment where they've seen this. And all of a sudden they come in and they're watching kids maybe doing Taekwondo, adapted Taekwondo. They're watching them play Volt hockey. They're watching kids who maybe have a limb difference, who are swimming. And all of a sudden now, when they go back into their communities or they go back into their environment, they're more willing to remove those barriers, attitudinal or otherwise. And they're going to have those conversations with their kids. And it just builds a whole other more organic, real way to include, right?
Well, so as an extension from that, what we've been talking about internally is the people that are coming that just want to write a check for $200 to make us feel good.
Yeah.
It's like they're then doing that to then post it on social media, to then get the kudos that this is what they're doing.
Right. Agree.
This is what we should be doing, period. Hard stop.
Yeah.
We don't need to be taking the credit of doing it.
Right.
Letting everybody, this should be just part of our culture
Sure.
of what we're doing. So it's like, instead of dealing with 20 groups at $200 each,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm picking round numbers, but
Yeah.
it's just not worth it. Let's work with a few of them and do more where they're actually really committed to the cause and really telling the story. Because I could see us going down, if they're doing a training session, we bring some of our athletes down to talk about resilience and grit and competition, and that would be something that would be impactful for them.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're kind of doing this because they're the right stories to tell.
Yeah, absolutely. So you talked about, I know, like Jordan and I've talked a lot about, I sit on a board of directors for Easter Seals, and we talk a lot about sort of, but the organizations are very parallel. And we talk about, my son's been involved with Cruiser Sports. We talk a lot about the importance, again, of the things we talked about earlier. So, how do you take a look at sort of Variety and how you're positioned, I think, from a few different ways? One is to sustainability, to make sure that these things are around and continuing. But then how do you take a look at expanding? And I'll say to Jordan a lot, there's things that I think McLean would love to have done, but the reality is that it's not always convenient for us in Burlington to head over to that amazing facility you have. And I can tell you have a sports background when you call it a field house. But you go over there and you have access to that. I would have loved to have had that. And so how do you build this out to bring those opportunities into these communities so that kids can access them, in the same way?
So
Throw it right on the spot.
I don't know the answer specifically yet.
That's okay.
Except when I go through kind of, we're now on a kind of what are the strategic priorities of where we want to go. Children with disabilities, right at the top of the list.
Yeah.
Persons with disabilities.
Yeah.
Programs. And then I went, oh, hold on. Programs on site, programs off site.
Right.
What are we doing? And then we're talking to a couple people, Jeff Thiessen yesterday and somebody else today, about programs that they have developed or are developing for schools.
Yes.
In different communities.
Yeah.
And so I'm saying, okay, wait a second. Because Jeff was funny because he said, here's what we're thinking we want to do, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, we're in. This was after 3 minutes. And he kind of went, wait, what? I thought I was pitching. Conceptually, you're saying you've got a program that can roll out programs across the province to different communities and rec centers and these types of things. That, I think, is going to fit with what we want to do as the Children's Charity of Ontario.
Yeah.
How do we partner so that we're saying, we can then go to government or other funding partners to say, hey, we've got a program we want to roll out in partnership with somebody.
Yeah.
They're the experts in this area. We've got that name and reputation as experts in our area. Here's how we can facilitate this.
Yeah.
I think has got a lot more legs than us trying to do all of it on our own.
Agreed.
I think we've done a great job with Volt, but that's an expensive program, and the human resources internally to roll it out has been a lot.
Yeah.
But if you take those communities that we're already doing something in, and you say, okay, well, what more can we be doing in Barrie or North Bay or London? On top of that, there could be more opportunities for gym programs or lacrosse programs or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
Whatever it is there. So, I certainly see it falling within our strat plan, but then it also allows us to. So I've been talking to several CEOs of Jumpstart, the ministry already, and Pizza Nova and other partners, and literally saying, and I said, I've been told 1,000,000 times no, so I have no problem asking for things. I think I'm pretty good at what I do.
Right.
I know I get told no a lot, but the idea of instead of going to somebody for $1 million program, I said, does it make more sense, say to Jumpstart as an example, to Carla, like if I came to you and said, I'm looking for $250,000 because CIBC is going to be in for $250,000 if you're in, and the government's going to be in for another $250,000, and we're going to be in for $250,000.
Yeah.
And everyone to a T has been saying, yes, those are the types of programs we want to be involved with, because now all of a sudden, we got $1 million program, but I'm not the one with, footing the bill for everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'd rather give you $250,000 than give $25,000 to, 20 other groups.
Yeah.
Because I can make more of an impact with my $250,000 because you've now multiplied it by 4 to do a bigger program.
Absolutely.
So, I think that's going to be an opportunity for us to be able to go to people and say, here's how we want to take some of the success that we've built internally on site and roll it out off site.
Well, because I think too, when you talked about, having impact, I agree with you. I think, if someone, I'm a big fan of sustainability. Kids become dependent on things like, your minor hockey association in Burlington is not going anywhere. They've been around forever. Your baseball association is not going anywhere. You bring in something like a Volt hockey program, or you bring in a wheelchair basketball, and it runs well for a year and then it's not there anymore. There's going to be a whole bunch of kids who are going to be disappointed along with their families. And so, when you have the opportunity, if someone believes wholeheartedly in programming and expansion and bringing that out to communities and in the work that you do, you need to make those investments in order to make sure that you can roll it out. It is sustainable and you can do it the right way, right? So
because otherwise these programs are a one volunteer dependent program.
Can't do it.
And all of a sudden, that volunteer is not leading it anymore. It's like, no, we need to be working with each of the municipalities so that their parks and rec department are tied to it. And we've got time within their facility, or we're building ramps to get into their facility, or we're doing whatever we can to make sure it's accessible for the people that are participating in these programs. And I think the importance of walking before you run. So the idea of saying, hey, we want to do 20 programs across the province. No. Let's worry about doing one program in one city and doing it well. We test market it properly.
Yeah.
We ebb and flow from there. And the next year we roll out 3.
I agree.
And then we go from there. The next year is 5 because we've got a template that is working.
Yeah.
I think that's, to your point about sustainability, what's the point of doing it and investing time and resources and then having it fall apart in 18 months?
Yeah. Now, what you currently offer at Variety, we're talking, I'm familiar with it. Jordan's familiar with it, obviously. You're becoming more familiar with it. But from a perspective right now, tell us about what Variety is currently doing, Charlie. What are the programs you offer? Who are the communities that you currently, right now, that you currently offer things to? Tell us a little bit more about the organization right now, because we just jumped in because we already know these things. But for people that are listening that want to know more about this, maybe someone calls you and says, I want to give you $250,000. Tell us about Variety.
Well, I'll give him my phone number first. Well, here, what it is it's an all access facility for people with all abilities. And right now we're running at about 6,000 members. Interestingly, only about half of which identify as having a disability.
Interesting.
And so you go out to the field house at any given. Well, I was out there yesterday. There's a kid in a chair or a walking brace, trying to move around. A couple of seniors are out walking. Somebody's out there with a personal trainer, and then there's 2 elite athletes whipping around the outside. And I thought, what's awesome is everybody just seems to be giving everybody enough space.
Yeah.
Everyone stays in their lane.
Yeah.
And nobody's fazed by anything.
No.
So, and I had 2 retired school principal the other day. He said, "Oh, you just missed it." I said, "Just missed what?" He goes, "Oh, our buddy Tom was with Martha and they're looking for Bill." And I'm like, I don't get it. He goes, "No, you don't get it." Because he goes, "Martha's in a wheelchair." I'm like, "Yeah." Bill's blind. He's pushing the wheelchair with the blind lady, and they're looking for Ted, who's got Alzheimer's, and they don't know where he's gone.
Oh.
But that's the community.
That's exactly it.
That's what you built.
Everyone's helping. Everyone.
And there was somebody else that he said he had a stroke and went to Lyndhurst. Lyndhurst suggested he come here. His family's in Windsor. He's been here since October. He goes, "Am I ever glad I didn't go back to my family in Windsor?" But I found family at Variety.
Oh.
And I'm like, "Really?" He goes, "Oh my God. I'm coming in, I'm doing my workout, but then I'm here for another hour and a half because I'm talking to my new friends." Again, able-bodied, not able-bodied, somebody else that's gone through a stroke. So it's that part of it. Well, and when I was with the LG earlier today, we came around the corner. There's 3 women having a coffee. And so she stopped and, "How are you?" And she was joking, "I'm looking forward to having coffee time with my friends." But they're like, "Oh yeah, we come for our workout, but then we're staying because it's a great place to socialize."
Of course.
And then, so in
you need more of those stories out in public.
Well, and what's interesting, Jordan, is we just got some research from Jumpstart about why kids are participating in sport. Number 1, by far, sociability.
Yeah.
That's where I meet friends. That's where my friends are.
Yeah.
And it's even more so important for those with disabilities because they've fewer opportunities
Of course.
to meet friends. But it's the sociability of it. I'm like, okay, good point. Let's lean into facilitating those types of things. So, how do we build the facility? And we've got parts of it where it's not just a regular gym when you come in, work out, and then you're gone. You're coming in, there's lounge areas where people are sitting and talking or participating, or the 1 hour workout, all of a sudden takes an hour and a half because you're chit-chatting, but there's facilities or spaces within the gym where you're able to do that. So, and the variety of classes, depending on, there are people here from, my granddaughter now is 8 months old. She's taking swimming lessons. And then there's somebody here in their 90s walking around the track.
Yeah.
So everybody's exactly. And depending on the day, there's day programs going on and the place is filled with adults and, they're trying to figure out, their day program and what's going on. And then it gets a little quiet, and then the students are coming in after school, and then that's a couple hours, and then you've got programs happening in the evening. And we're open from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Wow.
So
busy.
Full day of programming, right? Full day.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is there are times I walk through and go, okay, this is quiet. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, new opportunity, more members, more programming.
Right.
And then somebody went, careful. There needs to be a balance because you can't do a massive programming in one area where we've got kids with autism in another.
Absolutely.
It's like, point well taken.
Absolutely.
We need to balance that out on where, let's not lose sight of what our main purpose is.
Yes.
Yep.
And then you go, okay, how do we manage around that? So, I think there's tons of opportunity. But it's also, and I get the advantage of coming in with kind of fresh eyes.
Sure, of course.
So, it's fresh eyes within the organization, but frankly, fresh eyes within the space.
Yeah.
So I can say, well, why do we do that? I don't understand. Walk me through why this happens.
Of course.
How does this happen? Why can we do more? I've had to take some steps back to kind of go, okay, I see why we don't have 20 people in the pool. We've got 10 because, they need more one-on-one instruction so it's been a really interesting first 2 months.
Well, and I'll add on, sorry, Joe, for 1 sec. So I'm just going to add on. I want to add on one comment when you talked about the sociability, and we are seeing that more and more. CanChild has done a whole thing now about, the F words of childhood disability. And one of them is, there's fun, function, fitness, friends, but they're actually talking more in those contexts now about fitness and friends and fun and function. But the thing that when you were talking that really, sat with me for a second is that you're not just creating social opportunities for children. And I know I keep focusing on children, but that's my lens. But some of my very best friends are my fellow hockey parents, that I met when my son played hockey for a number of years in the rep level. They are to this day, he doesn't play anymore. They are my closest friends. And
because you spend a whole bunch of hours drinking bad coffee.
Right. And I'll tell you, as a mom who also has a child with a disability, some of the greatest allies and friendships I've also met have been other fellow parents. But I often think about the parents whose children don't have access to those recreational opportunities. They don't get the chance to stand there and have a coffee and talk about it. They don't build those. And I think they mourn that. I think, so by you having a Volt hockey team or having a wheelchair basketball organization or even swim lessons, the parents can stand back, have the coffee, talk, invite each other to whatever that. So you've just expanded that support piece, which will in turn support the kids even better. So, that is really instrumental also in some of the work that you're doing.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah. Sorry, Joe, you go ahead.
I was just going to say that it's pretty obvious to see how passionate you are about the organization and its initiatives and expanding on it. So just an observation that I'm making. It's really nice to see that.
Yeah.
Well, and what's been fun is walking around every day. I'm not going to learn about the organization by sitting on a computer and reading old spreadsheets.
No, you're on a stand-up desk.
Yeah. But you get out and you start talking to members on what's going on, and you hear different things, and they'll tell me things that staff won't, or whatever. It's like, okay, this is the way I'm going to learn what's going on and what the priorities are for our members.
Yeah.
And now, I also think there are some members that need to understand what the priorities are of the organization.
Yeah.
It's a balance.
It's a balance. So Charlie, when you talk about, because this is, obviously, such an important piece, when you talk about raising money and, you go out and have these conversations with potential partners and you look at your fundraising initiatives, it might sound like a dumb question, but I think it's important to understand, talk a little bit about, like, where does that funding go? So why is that funding important? And then, there's also this assumption that the government gives a ton of money to these organizations to run all of these things. And that's not true. So maybe talk a little bit about why the organization is so dependent on the fundraising from companies and organizations to help support the work that you're doing and keep it going.
Well, I mean, we've got a fabulous facility. That's awesome. We have a fabulous facility. That's expensive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just to turn the lights on are expensive. Or and it's interesting. People go, "Yeah, it was great. I just went into the pool." Well, we blow a boiler, and there's $100,000 gone just because it's old and we need to replace a boiler to keep the pool going.
Sure.
What it is? I'm not sure that the listeners really understand how big.
Yeah, that's a good point. When you talk about big facility, how big, Charlie? Tell us about that facility.
I wish I knew the number off.
76,000 square feet.
How many?
Sorry?
76,000 square feet?
Yeah, 76,000. Yeah, I thought you said 6,000. I'm like, no. Yeah, 76,000 would make sense. So the field house itself has got a 200-meter track, like a world-class indoor running track in it. 6 basketball courts. We've got a full gym cardio room with probably 20 treadmills and a whole bunch of cardio equipment. We've got a aquatic center that has 3 pools, diving tower, a warm pool and a shallow end pool. We've got a gym, a weightlifting gym that's probably a couple thousand square feet just for heavy weights. We've now just built on some meeting rooms in here. So what's interesting is we had a meeting this week with Ontario Basketball, and they're talking about running a tournament. And we're walking around saying the beauty of hosting a tournament here is able-bodied or not. Mm-hmm. But Brenda, see, your family, for example, if you're coming from out of town, you've got an able-bodied kid and one that's not.
Yeah.
They could both come here.
Definitely.
And participate. If one's in the tournament, the other one's not, there's still other things for people to do.
Definly.
And you bring your whole family.
You bring your whole family.
And there's no barriers to get in there either.
No.
We've got the North American Championships for Volt Hockey happening here.
Yeah.
Well, there are kids that'll be there with their whole families coming in.
Yeah.
And they're going, great, because now my other kid can go into the pool for 2 hours and I can go work out, and I've got other things going on, which is just a really unique situation. And the CEO from Basketball Canada because I showed him these kind of breakout rooms that we've got.
Yeah.
I'm like, or he can be running coaches clinics, or he can be running, and he's like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
I'm like, you want catering? We'll get you catering. You want
Jordan makes a mean sandwich. Jordan makes a great sandwich. He would be happy to do your catering trays for you.
Yeah.
For sure.
So, it really is unique from that standpoint, and all accessible. It's all on one level.
Yeah.
So it's pretty unique that way, and a ton of parking.
And a ton of parking. And I think these are the important things, that, again, you coming with those fresh eyes, coming from the involvement that you had in those different initiatives and those different events, I think is really important, because you are, like, even the way you're talking, you're looking at things from a perspective that a lot of people, may not think about or know about for variety. And, even myself and, other people who are familiar with that, I don't think about things like that, about opening it up to an Ontario Basketball Association to come in, or I don't think about those other pieces. And so, I think That's really important. That's going to help you drive some of those conversations and open up some of those opportunities. Because at the end of the day, the more money that comes in, the more that it's used, the better for everybody, right? And I think that's really valuable.
As a not-for-profit charitable organization, we're not keeping any funds.
No.
Yeah.
Like it's like, okay, what can we do
Yeah.
to improve the programming?
Yeah.
Or invest in the facility, or invest in somebody made a comment about driving more membership, and they said, well, we're at capacity. I said, then we hire more staff. Like,
Right.
I'm happy to go to, Jordan, you'll appreciate this. I said, I'm happy to go to the board any day of the week and say, I've just made a $250,000 commitment on new salaries that we didn't have in the budget.
Yeah.
But I got $1 million in revenue that we didn't have in the budget.
Yeah.
The board will sign off on that every day of the week.
All day long.
So don't be, someone told me a long time ago, don't worry about having too many customers.
Yeah.
Like, we will figure out a way to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a matter of figuring out, again, even special events or fundraising events.
Yeah.
I'd rather not do 25 of them. Let's do 4 or 5 and do them well.
Absolutely.
Because they're on brand. They speak to what we're doing. It's a simple thing, but even the LG games today, it was noticed that the MC was a double amputee.
Right.
And somebody said, well, now you're walking the walk. Our previous MC was a television personality,
right.
Great guy.
Yeah.
But you're not walking the walk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and we're even talking about that as it relates to jobs here. Are we doing enough on hiring those with disabilities
right.
Within our facility?
Yeah.
Like, let's make sure that we're open to the scrutiny. To just, are there opportunities, full-time, part-time, whatever it is, but let's make sure we're doing our part.
I love that.
Because I can't, going back to Basketball Ontario, when I set up the meeting, I said, Archie, you've got to come in. You're the expert. I don't know what we do in wheelchair basketball. I don't know the sport. I just know how to generate revenue, but I don't know what we do or what the history is. So I'm not going to get into the minutia of the programming.
Yeah.
Because when I was at the Royal Winter Fair, it would be the same thing. Yeah. I used to say to the people, I don't speak horse. No. I don't speak goat. I don't speak cow.
Right.
But I speak customer experience, big events, budgets, board, government relations, those types of things. So I think those skill sets will translate well here because it's there's opportunity. And talking with Jordan and the board, it's like, okay, if we drive revenue, that helps facilitate a whole bunch of other things.
Absolutely.
So that's going to be the focus on what we do. And I think some of those business relationships with other people that way, as I was saying, I don't want to be the organization constantly coming cap in hand, expecting somebody else to fund all of our programs or our problems all the time.
Right.
It's like, no, I just want you to take up 20% of it. They'll take up 20%. You take up 20%. We're in for our 20%.
Yeah.
And here's what we can do. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. I'm always cognizant of time because you've had a full day. I think it's great that we have these conversations. And I know that our firm has always been so super passionate about supporting individuals with disabilities and children with disabilities. And obviously we applaud the work that Variety does and, Jordan's involvement in that. And you will always count on us for the support in any way that we can do that. We've even talked to Chris about having our team out there for a team building because, a number of the clients that we have been impacted sometimes by a disability. And so how does that help us be better at our jobs? How does it help us be better in the community? But these are also the things that we do that we talk about. Once we go there, we talk about the work that Variety does. And, you're fortunate you have a lot of built-in marketers with your families and the kids that are there who can talk about it. So, I'm grateful that we can have this conversation. And, looking at your background, I think you're going to bring a lot to Variety. I really look forward to what's kind of coming down the pipe and seeing the great work that you're going to do and all the things that are possible. And we're always grateful to have Jordan participate. And Jordan, how are you feeling about this?
I'm really excited about the future of Variety. going through the hiring process and bringing Charlie on board. I mean, we had a lot of great candidates, but I think we've ultimately landed on an amazing candidate. I've seen, the work you've done for the last 2.5 months, extremely impressive. I know the board is, and we're looking forward to, what the future has in store for us.
It's been fun, and I think it's interesting because as I slowly mature, it's like I'm at the stage where I just want to do good work with good people for a good reason.
I love
That's all.
that. That's my favorite. I tell people all the time, of like, if we can do the right things for the right reasons, then that's
all.
Oh,
I'm not that bright, so it's just like give me some good people, a good reason, and a good cause, and we'll do some good work. So
I heard that you're not a short fella either. I heard that you're a pretty, I look forward to meeting you in person, because I heard that you're kind of a guy of some stature. And
no, I don't know about that.
But Brenda's not short either. That's
why. So, I definitely look forward to meeting you in person. I definitely look forward to being out at those events. We will bring our crew.
We have a casino night coming up in May in support of Variety Village at the Miller Tavern.
Yeah.
So tickets are live for sale. So
they are. Let me know how many you like.
We have a great turnout. That is actually one of the most favorite events that our staff goes.
20.
At least 20, awesome. 25 people. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's about getting our listeners out there too to support everything they do.
Yeah. So literally any information about Variety itself, you just go to the our website is the best place. VarietyOntario.ca. That links directly to Variety Village. More information about the programs, the opportunities. Again, for people, for everybody.
Yeah.
It's half the population doesn't identify as persons with disability, and that's the beauty. It's that inclusivity side of things that this just becomes everybody's kind of new normal. It's like, okay,
this is it.
Yeah.
So we will include all of those links when we put this podcast out. We'll make sure your personal phone number is on there for the people who want to write that. I think you said
a problem.
To call you. Great. So we'll put your phone number on there. They can call you for the check delivery. We'll make sure all the other links are in there so people can definitely find out more about the work that Variety is doing, that you're doing. And thank you again. And I hope it's not the last time that we have this conversation. Yes, Jordan, go. Sorry.
Don't forget our 3 questions at the end.
I don't even have. Do you remember what they are?
Yeah.
Okay, go then. You do it.
We can throw it out.
Okay.
One is butter tarts with or without raisins.
Without.
Okay.
Yes.
I think we did beach
or forest.
Or forest.
Forest.
And we
bath or shower.
Shower.
Okay.
Dog or cat?
Dog.
Okay.
Sweet or salty?
Salty.
You're fast on these.
We've gone from like 3 to 5.
I know.
I don't know if you've seen the video, but the staff came up to me within like the first 10 days I was here, said, we want to do kind of a rapid fire 75 questions. And I'm like, okay, when do you want to do it? They're like, no, the whole point is
it's right.
Like, we want to surprise you with it. And I'm like, so when are we doing it? They're like, right now.
I love that.
Okay, they said, so go stand over here and we'll pretend that we're catching you off guard, but we're going to, follow us and we're going to fire off like 75 questions. So it's kind of funny. So, but people love it. Like it gives you a little bit of a sense of, oh, okay, I get a sense who this guy is.
Exactly.
I certainly am cognizant that I'm the new guy walking into the organization, but it's been overwhelmingly welcoming, which has been great.
And now when we deliver your butter tarts, when we come to have coffee, we know that we need to bring them without raisins. And
100%.
Thank you again. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Thank you for spending time with us today. Thank you again, Charlie. Thanks, Jordan. It's so great to be back with you.
It was fun.
And we will talk again soon.
All the best.
Thanks, everybody.